What's up, everybody? This is Steve. With me is the Mondo. We're going to talk about a couple of games. But before we get into that, Mondo, it's been a while since I've seen you. Yeah, what's been going on?
Not too much. I actually have bad news. Part of my Mondo armor broke
Oh,
at
no.
home versus Tulsa. I actually have the pieces. I completely shattered my back plate on the. There was just a sitter during that U.S. Open Cup game. That was just. I want to say it was Jackson Walty who took the initial
Hmm.
shot from outside the box, and it was
Yeah.
just that scramble, and then just
Hmm.
nothing came of it. So um, I sat back down a little too hard and, and cracked my armor.
Okay, so it had nothing to do with the ball hitting you and you like
Nope.
being heroic and protecting like some little kid or something. You just
No.
sat down hard.
Yeah.
That's way less epic than I thought it was going to
I
be.
can pretend. I was nowhere near the ball all game.
Well, man, that's a disappointment. Man, yeah, that stinks. All
It's okay.
right.
If all goes well, I'm not at all panic finishing a new
Mhm.
backplate right now.
Okay. Okay. Is that one
So,
of the pieces that you printed, or is that a different style piece?
no, that is a printed piece. Yep.
Okay.
So
So rebuildable at home,
yeah,
something you can do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I should be good at game time.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, well, hey, you want to get into these Tulsa Times 2 games?
Yeah, we have. I think we have a lot to talk about.
I think so too. So we had two games. You already brought up the first one, the Open Cup game on Tuesday at Highmark. Um, we saw some notable changes in that game. I think we all kind of expected that. Um, uh, Perota started in goal. And then Kayet, Len Coop, Dragicic, and O'Toole also started. I believe all four of those or five of those guys, it was their first start. We saw, you mentioned Walty, we saw EJ, Emmanuel Johnson, uh, Deanne, and Zuber back in the lineup. And then Sample and Blackstock, who have been playing quite a bit recently, started that game. So, I mean, tell me a little bit. I was still pretty out of it from having had shingles, so I didn't make it down. Um, Tell me a little bit about kind of what you saw in the stadium, what your thoughts are. Well, let's start here. How was the environment?
Okay. I mean, it was a midweek game,
Yeah.
and with that, we were going to have a little bit lighter attendance, so it was a little bit tougher. I did notice some of the capos for the Steel Army and myself had to be a little bit more careful about what we said because our voices carried, which is I mean, it's great,
Oh, it's
but
fantastic.
also
Yeah.
um so the atmosphere, I mean, it was subdued, but that's to be
Mhm.
expected with the Tuesday game. I think this was another game where the start of the game just didn't have the same intensity as the
Mhm.
start of our season. So in spite of not winning our first 4 or 5 games,
Mhm.
we came out really intense.
Mhm.
And we just didn't have that little bit, I
Yeah.
think, that game. Like it just wasn't there. And
Yeah.
I that could be a personnel thing, but that could also just be, hey guys, maybe let's not start as hard and then build our own intensity and build
Mhm.
momentum, which, I mean, that could be the strategy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think so, and I think we've seen that in the past. I mean, I think having been a fan of the Hounds for a long time, last year's Open Cup run was, I think, a surprise to a lot of us. Not just because of how well the team did, but how seriously it seemed that Lily was taking the cup. Um, it's not a competition that if he thinks he's not going to go far in, that it seems like he puts the effort into really burying teams that are at the same level or above. Um, Last year, obviously, was a departure from that and a great departure. This year, and I think even Rob Vincent kind of hinted to that in his pregame on Friday morning with Mike. It just kind of, like, yeah, if we can win it, we can win it, but we're not going to sacrifice other results for an Open Cup run when we're still trying to put some of these new pieces together. And so, yeah, I mean, gave up a goal in the 88th minute. It was a nice goal by Philip Goodrum, who is a good goal scorer in this league. But quite honestly, I don't think the Hounds played poorly. I think I agree, just not a ton of intensity, especially early on. And that's not to say that the Hounds didn't have chances. I mean, there were numerous times that the Hounds could have opened the scoring and could have even put in a couple of goals. So,
I think the Hounds' greatest foe, which is finishing, reared its head this week. I think that was on display this week. Actually, on the field after the game, there was some chatter between some of the players, even saying we had 10 minutes with Mertz on the field before they even scored, and we got nothing out of that 10 minutes. Yeah. So the players themselves were actually pretty disappointed, which, I mean, that actually, I think, says a lot about the locker room spirit, which, I mean...
Tell me more.
So it's really great that even in a hey, if we win, we win, if we lose, we lose kind of game, like, which is what I would call the Open Cup right now, because of the way it was restructured, because the MLS comes in late. I completely see the perspective of you're getting very fresh MLS teams in. And I mean, yeah, we were coming in fresh as well, but you're getting very fresh MLS teams very early on. It's not looking good. Also, road trip to Kansas, not looking good. So with all that stacked against us, if we win, hey, we get to go out, we get to play some more. If we don't win, that's okay. Let's see what we have. Yeah. And the players themselves were like, no, we should have pushed a little more. Did I have anything left in the tank to give? And that's, I think, above and beyond what Bob Lilly is going to say. I think that kind of response is what you want from a player. Like, that's, you want the players saying, hey, did I have more left in me? So if I get another chance out there, am I going to put an extra little bit? Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the bright spot for the Hounds in that game, despite the loss. I thought Pierre Cayette, who the team gave man of the match for, looked really good. I mean, in the stands, what was your take on his performance?
So for our back line, I thought he was average, actually. I think he was... Okay. There was a couple of moments where he seemed clumsy or a little bit slow, and that could just be match fitness. I'm gonna tote it to match fitness that was a reason. I'm not saying he doesn't have the skill, but he just looked a little bit behind. And in fact, the goal that Goodrum put in was on the back of Cayette. Actually,
that's fair.
Cayette misclears the ball, and then everybody, I swear, I need to go back and watch, because I swear there was like 3 seconds where everybody just stood. Like, the whole, it was complete. Everything was like frozen. And Goodrum came out of nowhere and just nailed that ball right in. Yeah. So, like, I don't know whether they were looking for a foul in that moment and that's why they were waiting, or what the deal was, but that was a definite misclear from Kayet. That being said, that takes nothing away from the rest of his performance. He had a very solid performance. I think our whole back line actually had a very solid performance. And I think the man of the match was probably awarded to him because, I mean, yeah, it was his fault, but it also really wasn't his fault.
No, that's fair. I mean, I liked what I saw out of him. I think he was showing those things that a lot of us were hoping we would start to see. But we haven't really seen him that much this season, right?
Right. That was his first time out, actually.
I think it was his second. I think like he played like 6 minutes in the first or second game.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that then.
Yeah, but
I know he was a little bit during preseason, right?
Yeah.
And then
it might have been like the first game. I think he came in late, like really late. But I could be wrong. That's a while ago, and it was not.
That's what I thought. I'm trying.
I mean, at that point in the season when results weren't going our way, and everybody's depressed about it, including me. Who knows how good my memory is of that?
Yeah.
um, okay, so that was that. We got bounced from the Open Cup in our first game.
Yep.
Pick up the pieces, move on, and turn around and fly to Tulsa on Friday. And so we got an excellent short interview that Mike did on Friday morning with Rob Vincent while Rob was in the airport waiting to get on the plane with the team. So if you guys haven't seen that, yeah, a lot of the info may not apply to what's upcoming, but excellent info. Always great to hear from one of the coaches, and Rob in particular. Just really great, I think, to hear from with his professional experience and the way he can think about the game. So that was that. We go to Tulsa, and it was a game. 2-2 tie. Yeah, man, there was a lot that happened to this game. First things first, we give up a PK. What was that, 16 minutes in?
Yep.
On a corner kick. Ball starts to get cleared. I think it was Kizza that cleared it. It was a little farther away from him. He starts chasing it down and lunges to try to poke it out of the box and lunges through the attacker. I believe that might have been Goodrum in that one as well, but I'm not 100% sure. What are your thoughts on that play? PK, not a PK?
I mean, I think it met the requirements for a PK.
Okay.
At least it met the requirements for a foul, and because of its location, it had to be a PK.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's... Do I think it perhaps was a little bit harsh? Yeah, but I think most PKs can be a little bit harsh. I think the first PK was more fair than the second, actually.
Okay. Yeah, no, so I mean, in the moment, in real time, I was incensed. I was like, what the heck is this call? Then you see the replay, I'm like, oh, yeah.
It's like it's not the best.
Yeah. And so I guess, it's easy to criticize the officials. I think that's one where, yeah, they got it right. So
I will say, actually, on the back of that, I feel like the officials have been improving and getting more consistent throughout the year so far. I think the first couple of
to that.
I think it's been a slightly subtle. I think you still get the two extremes, right? You still get the ref who's going to call everything and the ref who refuses to call anything until he's already lost control of the game. Yeah. But you're starting to see less of that. I'm going to let things go. And more of the, hey, I understand you feel fouled. Do not retaliate or you will be getting something. Mm-hmm. And I've seen, you can see some of those conversations going on now.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's just the refs have started a better dialogue with the players. Maybe the players have settled in a little more or what the deal is. But I think the officiating has actually balanced so far, or started balancing in a, I think, good way.
Okay.
And I know that's going to be tough because, as Pittsburgh, we're going to get a lot of calls out against us because we are a more physical team.
Sure.
But, I'm curious to see if this continues, or maybe this is just, I've got a little bit of quarter season blinders, we'll call them.
Or maybe we've just had a run of refs that are actually competent.
Right. It could very well be.
Yeah. So penalty kick to Perotta's left. He makes the save and pushes it to the post, where it bounces, deflects off his head, and goes in for an own goal, which is just frustrating, right? I mean,
he's just a little unlucky.
He did what he needed to do. He guessed right or knew which way to go. And I think we'll get into this. I think he knew which way to go. Looked prepared. I thought it was a good reaction. stinks that the opening goal is in that fashion, especially when it's an own goal, right? Like it's not like he gets a hand to it and it goes in. I mean,
he got a lot
kept it
to it,
out.
and
He
it
kept
just
it out
needed
until it hit him again.
right. Like he was just in the wrong place.
Right.
But that being said, if it hadn't hit him and gone back in, there's a good chance that
Sure.
a Tulsa player would have just tapped it in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
was it unlucky that it was him? Yes. Is it a chance that still turns into a goal? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah. A few minutes after that, we had some great chances. Mertz had a corner kick that he took, I believe it was Sample, heads it right towards goal. It gets blocked, falls to Eddie Kizza, who bounces it off the bottom of the bar, and it bounces out instead of going into the goal, where the keeper pulls it up. On that, appeals for a handball. I don't think there was much in it, but one of those moments that you got to feel is just frustrating for the players, frustrating as a fan watching that when the ball's in those positions and you can't find a way to put it into the back of the net.
And that wasn't the only scramble that game.
It wasn't.
There were several times, and I think that's, if I'm Bob Lilly, which thank goodness I'm not, but if I'm Bob Lilly, I am very, very livid on all of those moments, because those moments against Pittsburgh usually don't go our way. And we saw that in the playoffs last year. We saw that, like, most notably in the playoffs last year. We saw that other times throughout the year. And we've even seen that already a couple times this year. Is the ball's pinging around the goal box, everybody's there, and the we're just unlucky to have it put in against us.
Yeah.
So if I'm Bob Lilly, I'm kind of pissed that we're not managing to put it away in those situations as well.
I think I hear where you're coming from. I don't want to assume that I have a sense of how Bob Lilly's feeling in that moment, in the sense that this is like to even be in that position where we're talking about multiple opportunities like that, where there are numerous players in the box fighting to try to get the ball into the back of the net for the Hounds, is not something that I think many of us are accustomed to seeing regularly. And to see it, 4 or 5 times this game, at least. And we've seen it in other games this season as well, right? Like
games, the outcome is very similar.
Yeah.
The outcome is always the opposing team manages to get it clear on the ball.
Sure, but I think that's the outcome that that you're going to see more often than not in soccer across the board, right? Like, otherwise we'd be seeing games with way higher scores.
I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I've been seeing the exact opposite. Like, those are the worst moments. As soon as the ball starts scrambling around as a Chelsea fan, I'm like, the other team's going to score. And this season, that's been the situation where that's. So maybe I am biased because I've been watching that for 8 months. But
you know your fatal flaw.
As the Chelsea,
you've been watching Chelsea, whereas I've just buried my head in the sand and said, No, it's more that I'm just not paying for another streaming service right now.
Oh no, that's completely fair. Listen, it's completely fair. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. But yeah, no. So at least I'm going to say higher division. Gently.
Okay.
Soccer, we see those moments usually go poorly for the defending team, because you usually have an attacker or a midfielder who's aggressive enough. And actually, hold on, let me back up. We saw it in the Tulsa game, the Open Cup game. Ball's pinging around the midfield, and it goes in. Tulsa gets the goal. Yeah. So we have a lot of these examples where we're seeing that. So the question is this a defensive issue? Like, is it like, are we not good enough in defense to be clearing the ball more often? Or is it an attacking issue where we need to be converting more of these opportunities?
Or is it a tactical issue in terms of the formation and the number of players that are in the box on either side of that?
Right.
I don't have answers for you, man.
I don't have answers to that either. That's just it's a fun thought question, and it typically ends in aggravation either way. So
yeah. Well, but 33rd minute, I almost turned the game off after Tulsa scored a second one, and not good on the Hounds defensively. I mean, fast break for Tulsa, but we had the numbers. But we had all of the numbers loaded on the side of I believe that was Goodrum again. Like, that's a name that I don't want to have to keep saying. It's reminds me of a few years ago where we would say take a sip every time somebody said Pasher.
I mean, sometimes there's just I think the thing we're seeing with Tulsa is there's just a player on Tulsa who just likes scoring against the Hounds.
Well, and to be fair, I'm sure there are other teams that when they hear the name Danny Griffin or Kenny Forbes or somebody or Robbie Mertz, right? Like,
of course he's back again. Of course he's there
right?
again. Yeah.
Like, it's just not always our forwards that are creating those reactions. It's our midfielders that are just doing some spectacular things in a different position. Yeah, I mean, we had the defenders. We were out of position, and their other attacker came streaking in from the left wing and just buried it past Perota. Which, again, hard to put the fault on Perota on that one when he was left basically like without cover, and nobody's tracking this way late runner, and so he's pivoting and like I don't know, like
that was basically a 2-on-1 there.
Yeah.
There's not really much. There's never much good.
Yeah.
Playing FIFA, that's my favorite situation.
So despite the fact that Tulsa has a 2-0 lead going into the half, their coach did not sound happy. He sounded
I agree.
Relieved, but not happy with the performance, that he didn't think they were playing well. And I think that showed throughout the rest of the game. Junior Etu in a scramble in the box draws a PK. 64th minute.
I think Etu's name is going to be on our lips so much this season.
Mm-hmm.
He's been showing that more and more every game. I'm loving it. I am loving this. I would love to see him a little bit more forward, actually. I would like to see both of our wingers more forward, if I'm being totally honest, but that's a formation thing.
Yeah.
That's just, I'm used to the 3 up front, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait to see what Etu does for us the rest of the year.
He's a quality player, I think, at this level. And so one of the things last season, I was down at practice one day when he was injured, and doing a team scrimmage outside. I'm standing on the fence with Grubba, catching up, chatting, digging for information, and just getting a sense of how things are. And Bob is not happy with whatever happened in the scrimmage, and he walks over towards the sideline where Junior's just kind of like kicking balls back in as they come out. And Bob says something to him, like he's like, blah, blah, blah. Am I right? Blah, blah, blah. And like he's going to him, like legitimately asking him, like
as he's seeing
right?
This,
like I'm seeing what I'm seeing, right? Like I'm not making this up. They're not doing what I'm asking them to do, or they're not performing, right? Like, and for a player in his first year with the team, for like if Bob did that to Kenny, sure. Like I expect that every time.
I expect that from Kenny. I expect that with Griffin. I expect that with Rovey. Like that's and that seems
I've never seen it with Rovey, right? Like sure, I'm not there all the time, but like I don't think he trusts Rovey in that way. I don't think he trusts Robbie in that way. But he trusts Junior in that way. Like that's a testament to the way that Junior sees the game and his tactical understanding. And I think you're right. That's what we're starting to see. That he's just been on fire lately. So Danny Griffin steps it up. And so again, question is, what do we make of PKs that the Hounds are taking? Because this is the third one we've taken this year. Danny's taken 2, and Keziah Sterling has taken 1. Can't tell because Kazia's not on the field at this point, right? Like
Right.
it's not indicative. So I'm still wondering who's our PK taker. No idea, but great shot by Danny.
I don't mind it being Danny. Danny's he's got ice in his veins.
Well, what I love about this is Danny's going to end up being like our second highest goal scorer, and they're all going to be PKs.
Right. Like that's what's gonna. But also with all the mind games Tulsa's trying to play, and Danny's just standing there like he could care. He was completely unfazed.
I'm glad you bring that up because that was my thing. I'm like sitting there watching. I'm like, why is this taking so long? Right? Like they're walking out. There's guys stepping into the box. The keeper's not on his line. Like it took forever.
The keeper was like off in the corner flag at one point.
Oh, I need a drink of water. And like,
Oh, the ref came running, like yelling. I'm surprised he didn't get a yellow out of that. Like,
right.
That's a dangerous moment to be messing around as a goalkeeper.
I mean, but is it like if you're in that position and you're trying to mess up the kicker, you'll get a yellow card. If it works, it works. It didn't work.
Right.
So
and I
Hounds
think
are
that's
back
what
in
we're
it.
seeing.
Yeah, Hounds are back in it at that point. What I loved about it afterwards is you're right. Like Danny was not phased. And then immediately his follow-through run is to chase the ball into the back of the net, pick it up, and bring it back at not a sprint, but a pretty healthy pace and put it right back at center field. Right? Like he's not wasting time. And that's one of those subtle ways that I think, sometimes younger players are not always going to recognize. But as the captain, to bury the PK and then to say, hey, let's go. Let's get this game going again. We're not out of this now. That's one of those moments of leadership that I just loved watching.
There's a definite reason why he got the armband. And this is one of the quintessential moments. Like that's such a, again, I'm going to make another Chelsea reference. That's such a super Frank thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I scored one. Doesn't matter. Let's get going.
Yep. Yeah.
Like it's that like, just,
we're doing it. And he's getting the guys going, right? Like,
and that's what you want to see. And that's great. And I'm going to skip to the takeaway and we can come back. But like one of the big things that I loved about this game, in spite of being 2-0 down, is there was fight. There was fight the whole time. There wasn't any give up. There wasn't any like despair. It was like, no, we're just unlucky. Let's keep grinding this. We know we can beat this Tulsa team in Tulsa. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And like I think that's the same thing from like the Open Cup game. Is like that same mentality. Oh, I think I have like an extra 10% I can chip into the tank. Let's do it.
Yep. Okay. So then my heart sinks again.
Yeah. Yes.
7-minute, absolutely atrocious back pass to Perota. And he's right on the outside of the box. The ball is out of the box. He tries to touch it in, realizes that there's an attacker bearing down on him. He lunges for it and takes out the attacker instead of getting the ball. And that's the third PK of the game.
Yep.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Like, I thought it was over at that moment.
Yeah. But here's where Goodrum was not so good.
Yeah.
Puts the ball in maybe even less of a good position. But Gabby was fantastic on this save.
He was dead on.
Decisive, strong hands, pushing the ball down and away, and gets a save on another PK, right? So, great recovery, especially after having committed the foul, which I'm not even faulting him a ton. Like he maybe should have cleared the ball with his foot, but at the same time, like
that was a weird situation. It almost looked like he slipped, like he was trying to get the scramble for the ball, but then it also kind of looked like he slipped and then he had no choice but to scramble for the ball. Like there's a lot that even watching replays, I couldn't quite pin down that.
That's fair. I hadn't noticed that maybe it was a slip.
I might be just like a little too forgiving.
Like, what's the decision on the back pass to that spot?
Right. So
Right?
that wasn't. I always hate keeper back passes. That's been. I have a personal vendetta against them.
I feel
Unless
like
you
that's
absolutely
something that
have
you
to.
should work out with a counselor, not me.
Yeah. No,
The way
that's
you
something
say
I'm gonna have
that.
But and I mean, there's been moments this season where those back passes have been very scary.
Mhm,
Definite nail biter moments. This was the worst of them, obviously.
mhm.
But I I don't know if necessarily the thought in that moment is passing it backwards. You know?
Hmm.
Like the keeper is not 10 feet from you. The you have I think it was one Tulsa player coming at you. Maybe boot it upfield, see what happens. I understand the let's keep possession mentality, but at the same time, the keeper is like right there. It's not going to do much good.
Yeah.
And you're in a very awkward edge of box. Like, okay, so it's one thing if you're like inside the box. Yeah, absolutely. That's a pass to the keeper, right? But you're in this like very awkward no man's land off to the side. So it's like,
Yeah. I think more of what I think about that uh, is this inexperience at this level for Perota? Is this uh, not feeling comfortable with the ball at his feet? Or is it just a moment where it happened quick? He made a decision and it wasn't the right decision, and he tried to recover, and the recovery didn't go well.
I'm inclined to believe the second one based on his then follow up penalty save. Because I think in by levels of confidence, you have Dick, you have Prota, and then I'm forgetting the other guy's name, and I cannot remember. But we have, Dick's definitely got the
I
highest
can
confidence.
picture him. I can't.
Yeah, I know. I can picture him. He's a very tall kid. As Bob said. But yeah, so I think just because of lack of playing time, he maybe has a little bit less confidence. But at the same time, I think he had enough confidence from the first almost save. He had
Mhm.
plenty of confidence to then turn around, and there was no fuss. There was no mind games from him towards the Tulsa player, and he just stared him right in the soul and said, "I know where you're going," and then saved it. Like there
Yeah.
was,
Yep.
there
Jake
was
Randolph. That's our other guy.
yes, thank
Yeah.
you, yeah.
Yeah.
But so I don't think it's confident. I think it was just played in a bad spot, and
Mhm.
it happens. Like it's
And do I want to see better? 100%.
right.
We see those mistakes at this level from early keeps. I mean, hey, let's go back a couple seasons, and uh, half of us were calling for um, who was our goalkeeper last year? Blanking on his name. Jamali.
Oh,
Wait.
yeah, wait.
I mean, his first few games were not good.
No.
uh, and then look where he ended up, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, he was fantastic all last season. And so I tend not to put a lot of stock in the what will be. And even, I mean, it was quite the discussion on the Steel Army Discord where some people were really upset with Gabby, and a few people that have been around for a lot longer were like, I don't think he actually played that bad.
I think he actually had a really good game. Actually,
Yeah,
I'm gonna throw it out there. He had a pretty decent game.
he had to make attempts on 2 penalties,
Yep.
and he got left completely hanging out to dry on the other goal, right?
There's
Like,
almost no keeper saving the other goal.
well, and that's my question about that, right? Like,
Right.
on another night, does Eric Dick do any better? I'm not
I can't say
convinced that I
think
could say yes. Maybe
if
he
he made
does.
all of the same choices, I think Dick has an extra like inch of reach. Maybe.
Is he as quick?
I don't know, actually. I've not compared reaction times between the two. I think
well, and I'm talking about a
like,
really small
right. Like
right?
we're talking like yeah. I think this is like a 1 in a million. I don't think.
Right.
I think you could put even better. We have the World Cup winning goalkeeper who lets in a goal off a cross, right? Like, so you could be the best goalkeeper in the world, and you're going to have a slip,
right?
Right.
Well, and then you look at right, like some of these guys. Yeah, you're going to make a mistake at this level. What happens now? The next time Gabby's in that position, does he make the same decision on the edge of the box?
Right.
Does he do something different? Is he more aware? Is he more likely to just put the ball out of bounds and give the team a chance to reset defensively? Right? Like that's the type of thing that I look for, not what happened in this one situation. And also, I mean, I don't see what happens when Bushy and Bob talk to him, right?
And again, I would rather.
But I think that makes a big difference, right? Like how he responds to coaching after the fact. That's huge,
right? And that goes to like I'd rather have a mistake at this point in the season.
Mm-hmm.
There's still everything to play for at this point in the season. I'd rather have a mistake now that a player can learn from, grow from, adapt from. Mm-hmm. By the time we're looking at trying to get into the playoffs, and the same situation comes up.
Yep.
Like, absolutely. Like, make all of the mistakes now, please. Get them out. Get them all out.
Well, and right, and so then I also think about what we've seen from the Hounds historically, and how we've seen some of these goalkeepers win their spots. Right. I mean, so
it's usually a mistake by the standing, right?
Not always, right? So look at Kyle Morton. He was not the guy that, or not Kyle Morton, the guy that Dan Lunt. Kyle Morton was the guy, Bob's first season. Gets injured. Dan Lunt comes in, has a spectacular season. Did really well. Morton, really good the next year, right? We signed Gomez as our starting keeper, and Danny Vitiello halfway through. I think that was the COVID. Yeah, it was the COVID season, right? Takes the starting job away from him, and it's not that Gomez did anything wrong. Vitiello got the start, I think, because Gomez had a knock, and they kept him out. And Vitiello did so spectacular that he played the rest of the season.
I mean, and that's also a little bit to Bob's mentality about goalkeepers too.
But even Jamali Waite, Silva was the guy that was starting at the beginning of the season in Waite's first season, and Waite was the guy by the end of the season. And so I'm not convinced that by the end of the season, we're not going to be talking about Gabby Perota as the guy that we're so excited to see in goal every game. Maybe we don't. But if it happens, it's not going to surprise me.
I mean, that seems to be the Bob way, really. Actually, in all honesty, I was surprised we didn't keep the kid from DC United.
We couldn't.
Oh, they wanted him back after that.
Oh, it was a lot of money.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then he got pulled up to be DC's third keeper for the last half of the season after that loan spell.
Oh, that can't have gone well. Yeah. I mean, I know it didn't go well. DC was the leakiest defense.
You might notice that you can't see the DC flag anymore. Not because of how bad they are, just because I don't pay attention at all anymore. Because I'm watching the Hounds.
Yeah. Oh no. I have converted. The Hounds fully converted me to a so from Colorado, supported the Rapids, moved to DC, supported DC, met a couple guys in their supporters group when they're still dressing up as like Darth Maul and stuff like that. Came here. The Hounds have me fully on the USL train. It's just so much more fun. The environment and this is going to be, I could talk for ages about this, but just the mentality, the environment of USL as opposed to the MLS. Like you can tell that the USL is more fan forward,
Yeah,
and the MLS is more money forward,
Mhm.
and that's even in just the way games are done, the way the players react to the fans. There was not a single. I went to a couple DC games actually for my friends, for a couple friends' bachelor parties because they're also from the DC area,
It's a great
and
environment.
yeah, oh, it's great. That even in a loss, that team doesn't come over, and no, they turn, they go up the tunnel, and they're gone. Like
Right. And so then
there's nothing.
you think about the Hounds and how different it is, right? And like every game coming up, every time
Yeah.
you're away, the guys are coming over. So we had another goal in this game.
Yep. Oh, by the
And this
skin of
was a
our teeth.
scramble goal.
Yeah. So speaking of
All right.
scramble goals,
So Keziah Sterling, late run in the box in the 88th or 86th minute. I mean, balls pinging around. Yeah, tell me what you saw on that. What was that?
I was on the edge of my seat. That was one of those like please, 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 please. And then as soon as it started becoming a scramble, I was like, oh no, this is going to go so poorly. And then out of nowhere, Sterling's like nicking it in, and I don't think I've ever been more excited to see Sterling. But if that's what he brings to this team, if that little bit, I think he has an edge. If he gives us that little bit, because that is what we're missing.
Yeah.
And we could see it all game. And from the moment he came on, defenders were reacting differently to him.
Mm-hmm.
He was being double covered. He was being double marked a lot. And that's opening up a lot of space. And he hasn't done anything yet. And he's already being double covered. And I say that in like the lightest way possible.
Yet.
Like he's
Here.
not right.
But
That's what I mean.
got a good
Is like the
reputation
threat
for
of him.
being the leading goal scorer. I mean, 30 goals in 2 years for Tormenta, and his pedigree in England, having played in the Champions League game and whatnot, right? Like I mean, it's
so
not.
My point being
he's
like
own threat, and teams are not going to be they don't want to be the ones that are letting him be successful.
Right, and that's like I think that's one of the best things is he's like he's not exactly an underdog, but he's a little bit of that underdog.
Yeah,
he's got the skill. We know he has the skill. He just hasn't, whether it's he hasn't settled in or whatever the case is. But he has those like, and it's very different watching defenses have to react to him because they have to cover him because they don't want him to have a breakout game against them.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the scoring. That's what happened in the game. I mean, there's a ton of different things we talked about. There's a ton of other things that could be talked about, and a ton of other opinions that are valid opinions that could be had on everything we talked about.
Yeah.
I think for me, big takeaways: continue to see some defensive woes. Not great to see what happened defensively, how we made some mistakes, how we gave up some goals or some opportunities. But the offense found ways to score. I mean, seeing two players that have been starting to make their marks, like we talked about, and Etu and Keziah, putting us in a position to get goals. Griffin putting that away. Really like that Peralta did technically make 2 saves, even if one ended up still going in. Excited to see if we see him again. Maybe we won't. Maybe we will, right? Like, I
wouldn't be surprised to see him on Saturday. I would not be surprised to see him between the sticks on Saturday.
When was the last time you saw 3 penalty kicks in like 90 minutes of a game? Right? Like that's fun. Even at least for a neutral. Is it fun as a Hounds fan when 2 of them are going against us? No, it wasn't. But like, you know what? Not a bad game. Like it's a good game for the league.
I can't remember the last time. I like it all honestly. I can't remember the last time.
And then here's the thing that was most astounding to me when I was going back and looking over this game. The Hounds had 21 shots. Tulsa had 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really different offensive effort than I think we see regularly historically with the Hounds. I mean, there are games where, and there have been seasons where the Hounds have, it feels like taken on average 5 or 7 shots a game.
And we're double digits almost every game.
Yeah.
Like
so we're seeing something different, and I'm here for it.
I'm loving it. And I think, so we were talking about what Sterling, that little something that Sterling brings. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's only been involved in 3 games now, but 4 games now?
4, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've been shooting a lot more
mm-hmm.
because thanks to not just him, but also like the positioning of other players, but especially because of him, other players are getting a chance to shoot. We're getting a lot more shots. It wouldn't be, I don't think we're going to have a golden boot winner at the end of the season, but it wouldn't surprise me to have our team having the most, you know, like out of the top 10, we have like 5 players or something, right? Like that wouldn't surprise me. I know that's an exaggeration, but like my point being, like that's a big exaggeration. Maybe top 25, we have like, you know, you see a lot of Hounds in there because I think that distribution is working really well.
Yeah, no, I also think the other thing that I've really found enjoyable about watching Kaz, as Rob Vincent called him. What I've really liked is the way that he plays is so different than what we saw in the past couple of years with Dikwa. And it brings a different focus to the offense because he's what I loved about Dikwa is Dikwa was going to bully players in the box. He was going to be there. He was going to run at defenders in a way that was really direct. Sterling is one of those guys that seems to just pop up out of nowhere from amidst the crowd with the ball at his feet and putting it towards goal.
Yep.
And it's like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah,
and
where did he come? He was just in goal, right? On the other side. Why is he over here?
Yeah. And so I'm excited to see what that brings throughout the rest of the season. Any last thoughts on this game?
I'm excited to see more of at least the offense.
Okay.
The offense, and I think the 2 goals against us went against the flow of the game, so I can't really speak to them. This probably should have been a 2-0, 3-0 win for us, and we were just kind of unlucky.
Yeah, could be. Well, we got another game at home this Saturday. This is the return of North Carolina FC to Highmark Stadium. This is the first time they've been to Highmark since July 20th, 2019, which is pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
So
I won the original 5, right? Or like not original 5, but like one of the 5 on the.
No. That's I think you're probably thinking of the Richmond Kickers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On the shield thing.
Yeah. Old Guard Shield.
Yeah, that.
Hounds, Rochester, Richmond Kickers, Harrisburg City Islanders, and Charleston Battery.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Or the supporters groups therein.
Right.
Not the actual teams. But those are that's the Old Guard teams there. But yeah, so I mean, so after the 2020 season, the COVID season, NCFC dropped down to USL League One. And now they're back up in the championship. Yeah, so this is a really different team. I was going to go back through and say, what is the history between the teams? I don't even think that's a viable thing to talk about. And right, like,
yeah,
out of the league for 3 years, right? Like, okay, let's see what they are. Treat them more like a team that came up rather than a team that was in the championship in the past.
Yeah, I would look at them like a promotion team, right?
Yeah.
Like they're the soft. They got softly promoted to the championship.
Yeah.
So they're always
not great. They're sitting on 1 win, 4 ties, 4 losses. Their only win was a 2-1 win over Hartford, who's also not great. They've given up 12 goals in those 9 games, so they might be decent defensively. They're not very good though keeping clean sheets. They've only had 2, and they've only scored 8 goals, so not even a goal a game. Not much to take away from that. I think we'll see. And
I hope this is
the Hounds game to lose in my mind.
Yeah, this has to be a statement match, because we should have done that. We should have had a better statement against Miami. I think we are lucky and we're being gifted a second early season statement. Louisville's had their statement match. Right. They've put forth the statement that they are looking like champions again this year.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I'd say actually of the USL, I'd say Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay. I'd say it's Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay who are not looking up to their pedigree or expected pedigree at present. I think Charleston had a big win.
I mean, Charleston is,
but then they also had a big loss. So it kind of
Charleston only is 7-0-3. Charleston hasn't.
Oh, so they did have the big win. Yeah.
Charleston hasn't lost a game, but we're not going to talk about the table just yet because we haven't gotten to that point in the season.
No. I'm just saying big.
Sure.
I
have there are some teams that have had some ridiculous.
If I think of wins,
results.
I think it was Charleston had the 6-0 win, right? It was Louisville and Charleston who both recorded 6-0.
Louisville had a big win, and I think somebody else had a big win out west.
Yeah, well, I don't care about out west.
You don't pay enough attention. I pay attention to what the Hounds are doing, and then I look at what the teams that the Hounds are playing on the weekend are doing.
I just take like a glimpse at the scoreboard, just to like get a feel of like where the Hounds are kind of sitting. Because I'm one of those, I don't look at the table until we're 10, 15 games in. Because
and the Mongols, not rule, but our form is we don't look at the table until after the 10th game. So this will be our 10th game. We'll be able to look at the table next week. Hoping to line up a pregame interview, so keep your eye out for that. But I think the most important thing about this game, and this supersedes anything we'd talk about North Carolina FC, is that it is Spaceballs night. And Mondo, I see an opportunity here because you are having to make adjustments to your suit anyway, based on what you told us at the beginning. So will we see a ridiculously oversized Mandalorian helmet or some other modification to your game day uniform?
Probably not. Okay. I'm gonna dash all the hopes. Probably not.
I wasn't expecting it, but I have to ask.
If we can find like a cowboy hat or something to fit on the helmet, maybe that'll happen. But shy of finding that, which I refuse to admit whether or not looking happened. Shy of finding like a big, because that would be, I think, the most Spaceballs thing for the Mondo to have is a giant cowboy hat, right?
Yeah, like one of those foam ones. That's
just absurd, just completely out of place. Yes.
All right, fans, somebody find one, put it on his head at the game.
And if we get to 500 followers, we can make Mike wear it.
I think when we get to 500 followers, it'll be a much more interesting thing for Mike. Which means, go subscribe if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube. Tell your friends to subscribe. Tell your co-fans to subscribe. Because, we want to get there. We want to make Mike do something crazy. One last thing that I'll say before we call it a night. Come say hi to the Mongols team. A lot of us will be there this weekend, so more than are normally there. So come out, come say hi. A lot of us will be at the tailgate. We'll be up in the Paul Childs stand, and we're going to have a little bit of a reunion episode with a few of us next Monday to talk about what it's like to actually hang out at a game together. So that's something else to look forward to. So, Mondo, any last thoughts before we call it a night?
No, but it looks like we're getting back to the way, right? Looks like this is almost the way.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, you all have a great evening. Like I said, make sure to share the podcast and get others to follow. Great talking to you all. Mondo, have a great evening. We'll talk to you all very, very soon.